All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So today we have an extremely good Devstream 157 breakdown. There is a massive amount of just great news here. Let's just like strictly pretty much just whole way through, just good things to talk about, which is always hugely appreciated. So yeah, we just have kind of just a list of hits to talk about. There's not overall like that much news on the new war, other than that they are, of course, still working on it. But we have a lot of other things to talk about that are going to be happening in the interim between now and whenever new war is. And then, I don't know, maybe there will be more than this too. Who can say? Regardless, let's just start off first and foremost with just kind of going in order. New player direction. So I have been, of course, doing the free-to-play through recently. And one of the things that is a struggle early is exactly this problem. Knowing what you are doing at any given time. Where am I? So basically, all this is adding in terms of our experience is a persistent notification on what is your next quest or your next activity or the next thing that you should probably do. It's not a hard line like the only thing you're going to be able to do, but it's going to be a suggestion for any new player coming back to the game. Maybe you stopped playing after 3 months and you have no idea what you were doing. It'll just be a nice pop-up that'll just be like, hey, go do this. And that is great. Fantastic. Just giving people the ability to not just set a goal for themselves, where maybe a player comes back in and since, I don't know, let's say that the Call of the Tempestari has been added and they haven't done it yet. If they were a player that had, say, previously completed everything that there was to do and Call of the Tempestari was out, it would tell them to go do that, theoretically. This is good. This is just purely good. It's a great tool for returning players and new players just in general. Fantastic thing. A lot of back-end work for this to, like, kind of, have the game determine what the fuck a player should be doing. But absolutely excellent. And I am going to make it my absolute mission in life to make sure that shit never pops up for me. So that's also a different kind of a benefit to this system probably for DE, is that a lot of people will play until that goes away. So yeah, cool stuff with the new player direction stuff and also just player direction kind of notification in general. And then moving on, we have a change that I have talked extensively about wanting, and that has been a thing just kind of floating out, possibility in the ether for quite some time. So much so that I have a 20-minute video talking about this that you can go and check out all of the reasonings why I'm super happy that this is occurring now. I am going to keep it kind of shorter and sweeter because obviously I could talk for 20 minutes about why this change needed to happen. But basically, the Forma improvements that are occurring are that MR is going to determine your Warframe abilities minimum rank. What the fuck does that mean? Basically, as you level a Warframe from 0 to 30, you slowly get access to your powers, and then further from that, the stronger versions of your powers, with your powers going from rank 0 to rank 3. So at rank 30, you have rank 3 of all of your abilities, and your full power in terms of just having the best version of those abilities, and then you're able to mod those and so on and so forth. What this means is basically, instead of a MR30 player, or whoever really, formatting their Warframe, and they go back to having their first ability at rank 0 and nothing else, you are now going to have it equivalent to your MR. So for an MR30 player, you're going to have everything. But this improves the gameplay for the vast majority of the active player base. We know that most of the active player base kind of averages around like MR 10 to 12 based on data that DE has given us. And that means for the vast majority of players, you're going to have all of your base abilities unlocked. You're going to have your first through your fourth. So they might not be their most powerful versions, but it means you are the Warframe that you are playing, even if you're formatting them. This solves the problem of just slapping all the damn health and shield mods on whatever frame you happen to be leveling, and then starting up the leveling mission and being like, here we go, I guess I'll be a Naros for 20 minutes. It completely solves that, and instead gives you just, another incentive to grind your MR, which is fine, because, I mean, D, of course, would like to incentivize that, but also just lets you play as that frame that you're trying to invest in. If you are formatting Banshee, it's probably because you want to play Banshee and not in Naros or Grendel or some other just big chunk of health Warframe. And this just accomplishes that, and it's beautiful. This basically means that for me as an MR30 player, I'm just gonna toss Forma into Warframes where otherwise it would be really annoying to like have to just like be like, okay, I guess I'll go do this, you know, generic leveling run or whatever and get this stuff up to speed. And even in addition to all that stuff, this also makes the actual like optimal, I suppose you'd say, leveling run also way better because you have Gauss's third ability that you can put into your first slot like you would now, and then you'd use that to level. You can still do that on the Warframes that don't have a damage ability, such as Loki, and it's just going to be a better version of that, so you can spend less time doing that because the ability is going to be higher rank and therefore stronger, so it's going to take you less time to get through that leveling process once you're at like the different tiers of your first ability being higher and higher ranked. So it's just a net positive overall for like the entire leveling process of actually using your Warframe while still giving you the option to choose to be like, okay, well, I'll just play as Gauss's 3 essentially and get this Warframe that doesn't have DPS abilities leveled up super fast. Just great all around, across the board, huge fan. This is also going to be applying to Necromechs and Archwings, which means it's going to be easier than ever to level a Necromech because if you are at least MR10, you're going to have your 4th ability, and that is by far the easiest way to level a Necromech. That ability is extremely good on both of the Necromechs, honestly, for leveling. So it's just going to be way less of a pain on both Necromechs for that. And of course, having all of your abilities unlocked on your Archwing is just, very, very useful, especially for something like the Amisha, which has like a rage equivalent for essentially infinite energy, while you are, putting a couple Forma on the Amisha if you're going to decide to do that for some reason. But yeah, it's just an excellent change. Amazing stuff. Very, very happy to see it. It's been a long time coming, but like it's great that it's here. Just in general, fantastic change. Moving on, let's talk about some Nyx changes. So, interestingly, around TennoCon, we were told that there are no reworks coming, but I mean, we can call them tweaks if we're going to get around the wording. I mean, whatever it takes, really. I don't give a shit. So Nyx tweaks, not a rework. These are tweaks. Mind Control is getting a base 500% damage increase, base 45-second duration, and the target will now teleport to keep up with you. Will this make Mind Control a good ability? If the 500% damage increase is moddable, actually maybe. Actually might be a thing. You might maybe get like an equivalent to like a stronger Wu clone, and Wu clone's pretty good. So is there some potential that Nyx becomes like a similarly high-powered Warframe for the purposes that we use Wukong for? Kind of. Nyx is still going to lack the speed, although we're going to get to a improvement to that for her in a moment. She's still going to lack the speed that Wukong has because Wukong is obviously insanely fast, so she's not going to be speedrunning Spy Vaults or doing any kind of that business. But for the purposes of like mobile defense type objectives, Mind Control might become an asset for that. The one thing that I, do have as a, not really a concern, but as like a commentary on just like how Mind Control works is that the enemy that you're mind controlling is going to really vary in quality depending on what they are. If you mind control a bombard and they're able to kill the enemies and like do this big AoE that like kills a bunch of dudes, great. Awesome. That's super good. If you mind control a lancer and they shoot one guy at a time every 3 seconds, that's terrible. So there might be some huge variance depending on what you mind control, and like that's kind of to be expected, but we'll see how this goes. I'm really curious if 300% strength Nyx rolling around with 1500% damage increase on their mind controlled target. Maybe there's some world where that's good. It'll be interesting to see at the very least. Psychic bolts. There's a minor feel change. Enemies will stagger on bolt contact, which is like a very minor buff, but it'll just give you more of a visual cue that it did work and happen. So that's good. Very minor thing. Absorb is getting a 15-meter base range at max rank. I think it's 10 right now. So 5 extra meters. There is apparently some exploit that you can do in terms of like, I assume like souping up her range to be infinite or some possible thing here. The scaling range is capped at 50 meters, which is solving for an exploit, ensuring damage is balanced by energy capacity. So yeah, so the scaling range is only 50 meters now, which is like not a big deal. 50 meters is great. Like I have no issue with that. That's as far as Mesa can shoot for anyone. who has seen Mace's max range. I imagine that's very few of you. She normally doesn't need to shoot that far unless it's an open world. So for any like kind of farms you would do with Absorb, 50 meters is honestly going to be more than plenty, as there are a few team setups that would utilize this. Also, the Assimilate augment now allows for rolling. So this is a great change. Fantastic change. This is a really, semi-popular, I would say, tank strategy to use Nyx with her Assimilate augment, and then you just activate that, and you basically can't die for through the vast majority of things, I'll say. So that's really good. Being able to roll during it is fantastic. Obviously, plenty of Warframes are completely invincible and able to just fully bullet jump as far as I'm concerned. So I would have, liked to see maybe just a speed reduction, maybe like an Ivara or something like that. But this is an improvement one way or another. Nyx is going to be faster. She's a relatively popular choice for taking down Sisters of Parvos and Liches at this point. So good stuff. Great things for Nyx. Happy to see this. Hopefully we see this on more Warframes in the future that need a little bit of help. I'll be curious to see where Nyx settles at after these changes, but they all seem positive. Moving on, we have the Knight of Naboris returning. There are going to be new cosmetics, and also the Basmu and the CD Lastra from Scarlet Spear will be returning. They did talk a little bit about Scarlet Spear potentially returning. That they said that is a thing that they want to do, but also they have developer PTSD from that because, there were a few issues with that event. And I personally am of the mind that I would like to see Scarlet Spear return with a revamped Railjack side of the mission. I think that the ground side of Scarlet Spear was excellent. It's one of my favorite events from that perspective, and that the Railjack side was just flawed, just kind of from like a general design standpoint of what that mission asks you to do. If they add to that or revamp it in a way that makes it more active like the ground mission, I think there's a lot of positive stuff to be had there with Scarlet Spear. But yeah, hopefully we see that again. In with that, we have new Bat/Dragon Wings, which I'm sure everyone is going to be way into. I think these look rad. They're going to go on a few different Warframes for me personally. Well, maybe not a few. I can think of at least one. Probably Necros. But yeah, these look cool. Great addition to the selection of ephemeras that we have. We have the Angel Wings, so we might as well have the Devil Wings as it stands. I imagine I will see these all the time, especially in relays, and at least for the first few months after this event launches. It did show on stream that these were going to cost 200 mother tokens, which is a super reasonable price. That's not crazy high at all. Always keep in mind that price might not be final. I think, honestly, even if these were like 300 or 400, that's probably still totally fine. Getting that many mother tokens is not that big a deal, actually, because the farms on Deimos are actually really good, and also the bounty rewards are really good, which is a topic we'll get into whenever we're reviewing some things from the free-to-play through later on. So, moving on from the Naboris stuff, we have the Quest to Conquer Cancer. This campaign is returning to Warframe. Obviously, it occurred last year as well. And this is going to contain some new cosmetics that are going to be unlockable at certain donation goals and such. Also, just to note, this is going to be like a big streamer event where there's going to probably be, I think it's a pretty much permanent, consistent Warframe stream that's being hosted by them and everything, and including a bunch of streamers and all that. Myself and pretty much every Warframe partner to my knowledge was invited to that. I'm not taking part in the main event just due to crazy scheduling things in real life. However, I am going to see if it's going to be possible to join that in on the side or something like that. So look forward to a Quest to Conquer Cancer stream from me, if at all possible. With that, anyway, new cosmetics. We have the dope ephemera, which is kind of a over the shoulder flowing ribbon design, and then you can also see the chest piece ribbon. We do have confirmation that the ephemera you are going to be able to edit the color of the ephemera, so it is base pink, but you can change that to whatever you want. This is a really rad ephemera. I think there's a good number of Warframes that can take advantage of this, and it's very nice. It's a good addition to the collection of ephemeras, and it's kind of evocative of the a lower tech version of the new Sisters of Parvos ephemera that we just got recently. In addition to that, there are additional cosmetics, and they are these. So, for these, some of these are at least one of these is exclusive to a real-life cosmetic, which is going to be a shirt, I believe they said, and you're only going to be able to get one of these sigils through that. Otherwise, this floof is also a thing that exists in real life that you're going to be able to buy, and you will get the in-game floof if you buy it in real life. However, I don't think they were super specific on whether or not you can still buy that floof in-game or not. So that's something to point out here. I don't think that was super clarified. But yeah, bunch of cool cosmetics to go along with this. Seems neat. I definitely want the floof because I love floofs anyway. So yeah, cool stuff. And then moving on, we have Hyperion Deluxe, which was shown. And there are actually kind of a lot of assets for this. So first and foremost, we have this, which is the concept art for Hyperion. And it's concept art 1 of 2. This is unpowered Hyperion, and you can see the axe in this art that is going to be coming with her as well, although it's a bit faded. She's going to be getting an axe with this. So this is the unpowered version of her, which looks really cool. I think this design is really radical. And then we have the powered version of the skin. So I think both forms look great. I'm actually a little bit more partial to the unpowered version. I wonder if there will be a toggle for whether or not you want it powered or not. That would be really cool. But we also have an in-game render of what the kind of progress of this skin is as it stands right now, which looks pretty radical. They said that the unpowered version is further along than the powered version, which I'm going to show in a second here. I think that this translates to in-game really nicely. I think it looks great. And the main thing that is not done on this powered side is like the energy effects. So it'll be kind of hard to judge it until those energy effects and stuff are completed, as they are a large part of the powered version of the skin, of course. But yeah, looks cool. Hyperion seems to be getting a really rad skin, so that's awesome. And then from there, we have the Protea Deluxe weapon. There it is. Okay, so the Protea Deluxe weapon. They said this is going to be a launcher Tonkor skin, which I am really hoping it's not just the Tonkor, because the Tonkor is not great. Let's go with not great right now. I think that this weapon looks really cool, but it's just not. It's not really doing it for me in terms of being on the Tonkor. That really doesn't help me out there. But of course, that Protea skin looks incredible just based on the concept art. So hugely excited for that. If it comes with the kind of whatever skin for a weapon I don't use, that sucks. I wish it was just for all like launchers, like the Tsar and everything. But if it happens this way, then I guess it's fine. You can buy them separately anyhow. Moving on, we have some talk about Parazon Kills since the rework, and I think there's some interesting things to discuss in regards to this. So you can see the time at the bottom, and this is just kind of generally how many kills that they were seeing with the Parazons. So I have a few interesting things about this, and it's that like this shows like May 9th or so all the way up to September 12th, right? And you can see at about the update, or right after July 4th, you can see that Parazon usage spike incredibly. However, this was the same time as the Sisters of Parvos update, which are the liches which force you to use the Parazon on all of the Robo Dogs and them. So I actually don't know if this means that Parazons are better now, or if they released an update with more liches, therefore people are hunting them down, and if that's just persisted for a while. I would really love to see this chart with more information to the left, back to whenever liches launched, and then see how it compares across that gradient. Because if it was like higher during like liches and then it just fell down to this point where we see it at May 9th, and then they released more liches and it goes right back up to where it had been, or like maybe slightly lower or higher, I think that just doesn't really attribute anything to the Parazon changes. And for me personally, my experience with the Parazon changes so far is that they have generally been a joke. I have definitely noticed that I can more frequently do a Parazon kill. That's definitely a thing. But whenever it's available, it's pretty much universally the wrong thing to do in all situations. I just shouldn't waste my time doing it. And I mostly do it for a laugh on stream. However, I will note that really early on in the free-to-play through, it was a good option for finishing off some super tough enemies whenever I was using the Mark 1 bow still. So if I had like an Eximus that was a heavy gunner, I would sometimes use the Parazon in those situations, and it was definitely the right choice. But that narrow use case, even for the free-to-play through, which is like barely a month on right now, that experience for the free to play through is completely over. There's no reason for me to use them anymore. So while I do think the Parazon's like, sure, it's improved, I don't think the Parazon has yet been given a real purpose and like been integrated into the core gameplay loop in the way that you would probably want quite yet. I think there are more changes that probably need to occur in order for it to be a good system that we look upon fondly and not as a necessity of certain mechanics and otherwise useless for any player that's semi-experienced. But yeah, that's kind of my take on the stats for the Parazon. I don't know how much we can really learn from like this spike up, and we don't have like, exact numbers to even look at from all of this. So, I like stats, but these stats feel like they could be being used in sort of a misleading way, or maybe are being looked at in kind of a weird light. Anyway, moving on. Nightwave tip expansions. I don't have an image for this, but it really doesn't need one. All there is to know basically about this is that they're going to have, for the Nightwave challenges, they're going to have some extra tips on stuff. So, for example, the fact that your operator can transference into like a downed necromech, that's going to be on the challenges where it's like get kills with necromechs, etc., and just help people push towards those Nightwave challenges and give them a little bit more information, which is always good. Good stuff for the Nightwave to be, a little bit more clear for players who look at a challenge and go, I have no idea what that means. This will, of course, help push those people to do those things. Now, for this last bit here, this is all basically speculatory. None of this was really, this was talked about, but nothing we're about to talk about seems set in stone in any way, shape, or form. And that is new player experience changes. They said that there is a spreadsheet of changes that they are thinking about, like starting to implement and put in and change parts of the early parts of the game. And part of that is going to include an amp grind revision. And they've really explicitly stated that they were playing through the game and then got to that part and it sucked. Like they pretty much, like, I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what was said. And I will, as someone who's going through the free to play through and I need an amp, yeah, it blows. It's terrible to get an amp. It's absolute garbage. So if that gets repaired and fixed, sounds great to me. But yeah, that's a good point to hit on and bodes well for whatever this spreadsheet of changes is, because I think that's definitely an issue with the new player experience and getting people into the content where you're going to want an amp. So that's great stuff. And there was a very vague conversation around mastery rank, getting some changes in quality of life, and there was some, further discussion between the devs that is going to happen in the background somewhere with changing that stuff. I don't know if that means like maybe changing mastery rank requirements or loosening conditions, or like where like there's a lot of interesting things that can occur with how mastery rank is done in the game. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they do a squish where you need far less items to get to MR 30 or something, or and then there's much more at the legendary ranks, or there's infinite possibilities essentially with what they could do to change mastery rank. Maybe, make it so your quests give you mastery rank, and then there's more in that and less in weapons. It's really hard to say what they're going to do, and it's, of course, very vague. It could be nothing, but it's something that's interesting to think about, mastery rank changing for kind of the whole player base. In addition to that, right at the end, they kind of started talking about operators and how they currently are. Which is that they are thinking about recasting operator voices. And they said thinking about, but it seemed like it's pretty definitely going to happen just based on the way that they were talking, but they did say they were thinking about it. And there's also the distinct probability of reducing to one female voice and one male voice for the operators. For me personally, I think a lot of people will look at this and be like, oh, they're kind of removing choice or whatever, but it legitimately is very, very difficult to get, 4 voice actors to all have to be a part of every quest. So if it's only 2, that is literally half the voice work, and then, all the troubles with implementation and all this other stuff that goes into making these quests. So if they cut down to half the voice actors and it is both A, higher quality, and B, the stuff comes out faster, I think for me personally, I'm way more into that, especially if we're, leaning towards, a higher quality of voice acting, because they even stated on stream back whenever the second Dream came out, the state of things was a lot different in terms of like them having voice actors come in and do all this stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see what we get, and then where they, if they go down to 1, it'll be interesting to see where they more so lean in terms of direction. I know for me personally, if they go through and redo all the lines for all these old quests, I'm going to replay through all these old quests and just hear all the new lines and get all the new dialogue, because I'm super interested in that. I'll probably play through it twice if there's one male and one female voice, just to see and compare them both. It'll be really interesting. Also, I realized I just totally missed it. There's also a new Laverian skin. We have no idea how this is going to be implemented exactly, but it's going to come from the Laverian in one way, shape, or form, and it looks cool. So that's kind of all that matters. Yeah, it looks rad. For me personally, I feel like it looks like a gunblade. Like, it gives off that vibe to me, but it could just as easily just be a pistol skin that looks really cool. Either way, looks rad. Looks like it'll customize well, just based on the kind of the color channels you could fairly easily identify just by looking at this thing, I think. And I can't wait. But yeah, sorry for the late Devstream breakdown. Had a lot of life things going on. If you want to know more about that, you can check the Discord. There's a link to it in the description. Whole big thing in the news channel about why this Devstream's late and kind of the chaos going on more recently. But yeah, really, really good Devstream. Absolutely excellent. Happy to see all this stuff. I mean, more Devstreams like this would be excellent. Just Devstreams like this over and over, and then major content releases like the new War, and I'm way into it. But yeah, great stuff. Happy to see it. Hopefully you guys have had a good time watching this video, and I will see you tomorrow.